Hey man, we actually aren't going to the beach today.
Wait, what do you mean?
Yeah, we're actually gonna be talking about the beach.
Gotta be more clear next time, man. Look at me.
Sorry about that, my guy.
No, just roll the intro.
No, that's my job. Alright, well, let's get on with the intro. So the beach we're going to be talking about today is the famous Whitehaven Beach located in the Whitsundays of Australia. So some general tips is that you're going to want a lot of sunscreen because you're going to be getting wet constantly while you're on the water at the beach and it's going to rub off and you don't want to be burnt by the Australian sun. You're also going to want a good pair of sunglasses, especially ones that are polarized, because since it's almost all water where you're going to be, the sun's going to be reflecting off the water and into your eyes. So you're going to want to make sure you have something that really helps with the glare from the sun. And then, as I was wearing earlier, you want a nice big hat or even a straw hat. They sell a lot there at the surf shops, just because the sun is so harsh, because the ozone layer is so thin, that you can burn a lot faster than you normally would in another part of the world. So having a nice solid hat goes a long way to helping you out. So the way I got there was I flew into Hamilton Airport and then took a ferry over to Airlie Beach. I'm going to mispronounce it all the time. But Hamilton Island's kind of like where the richer kind of people who want to stay in a little bit more isolated upscale place will go, and it's just an island right off the coast. And then Airlie Beach is where a lot of the tourists or travelers like to stay. So Airlie Beach, that is actually a small little town. It's got a bunch of little surf shops and knick-knack stores. It's a grocery store, a few restaurants to hang out, a few bars. And also is a large public pool area where you can go play in the water with your family or friends. You can sit on the side of the beach and sunbathe. And they also have a small grill set up around the public area where you can go with a few friends and have a small barbecue outside. You do have to note, they don't allow alcohol in the public areas, so you either have to be very sneaky about it or just bring it somewhere else. So the way I went to go see the beach was that I did an overnight sailboat excursion for 2 days and 1 night. It's the cheapest option, so it attracts a lot of the younger kind of travelers. So it's a group between 20 to 30 or so kids, ranging from late 18 to maybe even mid 30s plus, depending on who books the trip. It's open to everyone kind of deal. So you spend a few hours, they go over the safety guidelines, they just talk to you about the area in general. You'll spend the first day going to a few snorkel spots potentially and just kind of seeing the sights. At night, you'll anchor just a little bit of ways from the island, and it'll be a great night just to look up and see the stars in the middle of the Australian water. And then the next morning you'll wake up, they'll bring you to the beach, you'll go over in a little small dinghy, they'll walk you around the island, they'll let you explore the beach for an hour or so, and then you eventually have to pack up your stuff and get going because it's a little bit of a sail back to the main beach. So from the photography perspective, the first day you might not get a ton of shots, you kind of have to get creative with what you're doing. You can play with your shadow in the water, try to get some cool shots of the sailboat as it's sailing. There's also maybe a few spots if you get up close snorkeling. If you bring some underwater gear, you can get some cool photos of fish if you have that. When we anchored that night though, you can get some cool photos of the stars. You're just gonna have to deal with motion blur because the boat's constantly gonna be moving on the water. But my one shot I did really like when we were anchored was as the sun was setting for the night, there was another sailboat off in the distance that was sailing across the horizon. And it lined up perfectly with the sun as it was setting, so I got a nice snapshot of that. And then kind of just went to bed. But the next morning at Whitehaven Beach, the typical tour guide will try to just move groups off the balcony where you can get a nice shot of the beach as quickly as possible because there's multiple tourists trying to get to the same small little outlook. As a photographer, I kind of moved around and kind of left the group momentarily so I could find a nice spot to set up. Kind of jumped over the safety railing because it's not that big of a drop, just so that way I wouldn't have to deal with people and just try to get a somewhat different shot. Now, you might have a few people kind of complain or make note that the Karens in the world might point out that you're not in the boundary, but just ignore them for a bit. No one's really going to do anything. There's no police out there. Then afterwards, you can go down to the beach, have a nice time, try to find some cool, unique things to take photos of kind of deal. Then just enjoy your time being at one of those special beaches in the world. Now, I did learn one of the harsher lessons when it comes to tides of photography. I was taking photos of some of the friends I met on the beach, and we were in the water, and I could slowly feel the water rising from the tide coming in, but I kind of forgot where I left my backpack. So as we're shooting, the person turns around and goes, "John, your bag." And I turn around, and the bottom third of my backpack is literally just in salt water. So I rushed over, picked it up, looked at everything. And the good news was it didn't get most of my camera gear. All the expensive stuff was safe, but at the bottom that did get crushed by salt water were a few batteries and just a few portable chargers. So I ended up losing like $150 worth of camera battery, drone battery, and a few power banks, but it didn't get my drone and the majority of my stuff. So it was more of like, it was an expensive lesson for me to learn, but I'm never gonna leave my bag by the water ever again. So unfortunately, I did forget that this excursion didn't actually go see the Great Barrier Reef, so I was a little disappointed as we were sailing back to port. So afterwards, I rushed to one of the tourist desks. I was like, I know it's impossible to find an excursion, but is there any way I can get out to go and actually see the Great Barrier Reef and go swimming with it, because it's one of the most beautiful places in the world? And unfortunately, there was no excursions to go physically see it like up close. But what they did have might have been even better from the photography standpoint. They did have a quick little flyover, and in the flyover, you just basically, I got up the next morning, got on a prop plane, and then they did like a 2-hour loop around the whole area. So I got to actually go see the heart of the reef from above, and I got to snap this awesome photo. And then I even got to go see the Whitehaven Beach from above, which is honestly is the better photo I got of it, because you see the entire beach and the way the water moves in the sand. And I also got a few sick shots of the Great Barrier Reef of different sections of coral from above. Sorry about the changing light. I'm working with the daylight, so every time a cloud passes or too many clouds pass, the light changes. So I'm going to try to edit it as best I can. But actually, my favorite moment from the trip was not seeing the Great Barrier Reef or flying over the heart of the reef or getting a nice shot from above the Whitehaven Beach. It was actually just spending a few hours barbecuing in that park, because there were still a few people I became friends with from the sailboat excursion that day when I got back from the plane trip. So we all decided to meet up afterwards in the afternoon, go to the grocery store, buy a bunch of food, and then have a big barbecue out in the public park and just hang out, which felt really nice because it had been a while since I hung out on my travels with a bunch of people my age. And the cool thing is, you're traveling, but so are also a bunch of other people. So you meet people who are gone to the places you are going to, so you can learn about them, and you can also vice versa. You can tell them about the places you've been that's on their list to go to. You learn about their backstory, about where they're from, what they're doing. It's just kind of like cool to talk to people who are also just traveling the world just like you. So if you happen to just hang out with people a few days, make an effort to just hang out with them. So for the price breakdown, I was there for about 2 half days, 3 full days. Spent 2 nights in a hostel, 1 night on the sailboat. So I spent about $75 for the 2 nights in hostels. Now this is all gonna be in Australian dollars. Spent about 75 Australian dollars on food. The excursions were the most expensive part. The overnight boat excursion was about $375 for 2 days and 1 night. Now they take you to a bunch of cool spots, they feed you, they give you water, you have a bunk on a sailboat, so it's worth how much it costs. And then the flyover on the prop plane was about $230, so it's not bad if you're a photographer to get some really sick shots. It might be on a little expensive side if you're just a tourist. I definitely highly suggest if you're just a tourist and you want to go see the Great Barrier Reef, definitely go on like a scuba or snorkel trip. That'd be a lot more fun for you and your family versus just watching it in a little prop plane as you fly over it a few times. So that kind of sums it up for this episode. The best time of year to go is probably in the warmer months of Australia, or even fall and spring, because it's just so warm there that you could go in the shoulder seasons and it won't be a difference. Not for us in the northern hemisphere, that's just flipped. So for us, the best time to go would be our fall to our spring. If you go in our summer, it will be their winter, so that's just more food for thought. But it's the kind of area where no matter what time of year you go, it's always going to be flooded with tourists. So you just want to keep that in mind, plan your stuff in advance. And as always, let's recap.